One Big Team podcast, baby, episode 5. So grateful to be sitting here with my great friend, my business partner, vice president at Mabry Academy, Casey O'Neill. It has been such a special journey since we've met. We did a podcast almost 3 years ago, which was hysterical to go back and listen to. And to be here right now with you, Case, is so special. Thank you so much for being here.
I love it. Super excited when you said you were bringing this back. I got fired up, and then and then personally and competitively, I was like, well, when am I coming on?
Oh, no doubt.
Like,
no doubt.
When do I get the call to come to Virginia?
He texted me last week and he says, I need to be on the podcast. Like right now, let's go. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Which I love. And I want to start off this episode with the confidence creation routine, something that we instruct players to do, going through our preparation, our past success, and then visualization, a way to tap into our best selves. Right now, if we just went into this hot, I'm sure that we would have a great conversation. But I do know that to be at peace with our effort, our focus, our attitude, this is an exceptional place to start. So can you list off some of the reasons why you are prepared to deliver an excellent conversation that can help people today?
Yeah, it's repetition, it's process, it is experiences, lessons learned, right? Over the years. You mentioned us doing this 3 years ago.
Yep.
And, I and you, we are different people in 3 years,
yeah.
Right? And so going back to that, I had some experiences in sitting in front of a microphone, even though before I had done my own podcast, I never had. So lessons learned. How do I progress? How do I go through that? And talk about confidence, at the academy, and the things that we're learning and trying to have our kids understand is that it's a daily choice.
Yes.
Right. Confidence is literally a daily choice that we take for granted. And I'm learning it at the age of 46 every day through my body language, through those experiences, and going back to 3 years ago, watching that over again, thinking how much, we have changed and grown, not only as a business, but our connection and our relationship, because we talk every day. We're talking about academy students. We're talking about college. We're talking about life, things going on. To answer the question, it's the daily choice. Every time I go through these, I can speak in front of a team through those experiences. I've done it 100,000 times, but then I might have a new experience. I go speak to a middle school, right? For the academy. I'm really nervous.
Sure.
So what's the choice I'm going to make?
Yeah.
Am I going to choose to be really, really nervous, or am I going to take a deep breath, have a routine, and come in there? So lessons learned, Coach.
I love it. All right. So the preparation, a big part of it is you've been preparing. You're constantly in preparation for the next big moment. I love it. And I also think for myself, very similar. Every day taking actions to be a better version of myself, to work on our public speaking skills, our communication skills. Absolutely, you and me are prepared to deliver a great conversation, knowing that I feel a little bit more belief in myself, in what this podcast will do. Past success. All right. So what are some examples of demonstrated performance? Right now, we're going to have a conversation. We're going to ask questions. We're going to listen. We're going to speak with enthusiasm. When are some times that you've done that and now we can go replicate it again?
So again, all through experiences. I mean, you can look at it in a variety of ways. For me personally, I can go through past success and look at a couple different areas. For instance, one being a dad. Okay?
Yeah.
One being a father. What I did well, what I didn't do well, and what I'm going to continually strive to do to be a good dad, to be same as a husband, right?
Yeah.
To be somebody who is, if you're into a faith or spirit, like how do you continually challenge yourself to be committed to that? As a coach, as somebody who's a vice president and executive director of a company, how do I continually reflect on all the things I've done? If I were to narrow it down even further as a person, right? We talk all the time to our kids that we speak to ourselves individually the most.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So yes, I talk to you, I talk to my wife, I talk to my kids, I talk to the kids I coach, but I'm always in my own head. Right. And I've learned this from you that, like, if I don't at least give myself the chance to practice elite self-talk, right? In all these different experiences and things that I'm doing in my life, right? I'm going to be a product of what I keep flooding my brain with.
Yes.
Those experiences, going through all that is where I am today and what I'm doing. And so I kind of lean on all that and get fired up to sit down and have just a conversation, because connection is everything.
Yes, no doubt. And I love the pulling on elite self-talk as a perspective of past success. I had a conversation with a player the other day, hey, why are you going to be proud of yourself at the end of this showcase? Right. So we were talking the night before. Say, so tomorrow night, when you call me, why are you going to be proud of yourself? And one of the things he said, and we were doing this confidence creation routine, is this spring, my self-talk was the best it's ever been, and it's getting better, which is a really cool thing. So I love the past success. Every day we're choosing to speak to ourselves in an instructional, motivational, positive way, growth-oriented way. And because of that, we can go do that again right now in a more external setting. All right. And then let's take a second. Let's close the eyes, visualize ourselves. Just great big body language, focus on the present moment. Self-talk is high, asking great questions, listening, just great energy, ready to deliver and do our absolute best. Yes. Just gathered, grateful, so ready to go. I love it.
Incredible imagery. And if I can just jump on one more point too, when I was reflecting on my answer again, look, I'm thinking about the answer I gave and the conversation. We with our kids and the the students we work with, we talk a lot about, and I don't want to go right into social media, but their labels, like who they are.
Yeah.
And what I was proud of my answer to you was, as a dad, as a husband, as a coach, as somebody who works, I'm all these different things, right? We are too aligned with the kids to just focus that they just play lacrosse or they just play basketball or they're just an artist. We're so many more things. So if we can create that and think about that in all areas, it's pretty cool. So
that takes us right into one of the things I wanted to talk about, which is wins. All right. So when you focus on your wins, it motivates you. It keeps you going forward. It keeps your perspective on your strengths. So I was listening to our episode almost 3 years ago. There's a bunch of wins there. And so I love that you said, I'm really proud of myself for this. Yeah. Because that's something, did you do that when you were a teenager? Did you say those words when you were in college? No, right? Me neither. And now I'm realizing through working with a coach years ago, that sense of pride can be attached to just small wins and living in alignment with your core values and consistent growth. So I'm listening to the old podcast. First thing I noticed, I can hear it in my voice. I'm shaking. I was new to the podcast game. I was nervous and I didn't have the tools that I execute on now daily. So that's a win. I'm proud of how I've developed as a speaker. But the other one is this. We said on the podcast, Mabry Academy, process of becoming national model for player and personal development. Right. We will be national and we will be global. And we have since then worked with some of the best high schools in the country. We've worked with college programs and we have worked at the international level. So some wins there. What's your thought on channeling your focus on wins and process and progress?
Absolutely. And immediately as you were talking, I'm thinking about a couple things. In my brain, it's just like, somebody at air traffic control. There's like so many things going on, right? That are flying around that I want to say, but really, really the wins and the vision, right? You create a mission, you create a vision and principles for a company.
Yes.
And we're doing it, right? We're absolutely doing it. And when I think about that question of what are some of the wins as well, I start to think immediately. My brain goes back to the thought of as a coach, okay, you could define it as successful, winning championships and sending players to college. But the first thing that wants to creep in is the losses.
Sure.
The losses where people would tell me along the way that sometimes these losses are going to outweigh any great successful thing that you had in your life, right? So you win 9 WCAC championships and national rankings, but the creep in is, man, if we'd only beaten McDonough that one day, right? Yeah. Maybe we could have been undefeated, or man, that loss to Georgetown Prep, or man, that upset we had to PVI, losing to PVI in 2018.
Yeah.
And so I go to that, and so I can either channel in that situation, okay, I can still be stewing over it. How did we lose that one game?
Yeah.
Right? What did I do wrong? Or I can be like, you know what? That was one of the biggest motivators for me, for my team, and for kids. The lessons learned. Yeah. So those are the small wins. And a lot of us can choose to focus on that negativity. We can choose to focus on those things. And that goes to the self-talk. Yeah. And that's our product.
Yes.
Or flip side of it is, as you say, those mistakes, those lessons learned. Mistakes are, what do you call it? The get better juice, right?
Get better fuel. Yeah.
Get better fuel, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm learning that. And if we can sort of transfer that knowledge to the kids of,
all right, huge one,
right?
Really big.
So I think about all those things, and it's easier when you're 46 and you've been through a lot of experiences, but it's really impactful to articulate that in a way where people can learn from that.
Yeah, I think it's most common when we think about the wins, we really think about the big outcome.
Right.
And then we encourage players to go into, what was the small process oriented controllable that you dominated. And then they get that. And then they become focused on that, which is huge. And then what you're talking about is now turning what was first perceived as a failure or a mistake and into a win, which we can absolutely do with our perspective. It's incredibly powerful. And I think that in that regard, I'm so curious now, right? Because you're referring back to these games. Like, I know when I've lost games and when I'm with teams and we lose, I tell them, I look at them, I go, guys, I am the person I am today because of the games that I've lost. Like, I see it so clearly. The mistakes I've made as a person, that's why I show up the way I show up. What are some of those sports related or life related mistakes that you can say, wow, I've transformed it into a win because it was lessons learned now?
Again, you could put it into different categories. One could be as the coach, right? As the coach, and the way maybe I reacted. So an event happened to other assistants, how I treated them. Maybe earlier in my career of, I can think of a few instances where, we had a bad substitution. We had an offsides penalty or something that was someone else's fault. And so how I responded to that to them was, that equaled an outcome of very toxic. Right. So I learned from that, or decisions I made about practice planning and things like that. I can also think about it even further back as a player myself. Right. How I reacted to certain things when I was competing. Did I have the mental skills, or at least the discipline to take a step back, take a breath, have some type of release or refocus? But I didn't, because I was younger.
You didn't know. You didn't have the language then. You didn't have the skill set.
Right. Learning, maybe the day after a game that a big upset, and you've got 40 young people coming into a classroom to go over the practice plan and sort of review the film. How I address the kids. Was that needed? Did I need to be that much of a jerk, or did they need that? And so learning through all those different areas. I completely think going through this process of learning from those mistakes, of learning from those tough losses was very difficult. I was very stubborn at times, but it was some of the best lessons I ever learned.
No doubt.
As a coach.
Yes.
And I wish at certain times, and it's amazing how life works when people kind of come into your life, whether it's a child, whether it's a new player, whether it's a new coach, and they have new ideas, or my friend Keith Wilford, who came in later in my career, that had me step back, and he's like, you guys look great at practice, but how are you, coach? How are you personally? Right. I know you guys lost that game 2 weeks ago, and you're so quick to get back in the lab and work and try to draw up a new man up or do something, or a new clear. And he's like, but are you good? I'm like, what do you mean by that? He's like, no, if you're not good, right? If you're not good with you and learning from these, how are you going to be impactful in helping these kids?
Totally.
Right. It's kind of fake.
It really is. Yeah. Going back to the framework of lessons learned, one of the things that we did with our Winter Compete to Elite program, our weekly mental skills sessions, right? We had different prompts, and every week we would go through on Sunday nights those prompts. And one of them was lessons learned. And it was essentially for 12 weeks, training our players, our students of the academy, to identify mistakes during the week, and then through perspective and self-talk, transform them into growth and lessons learned that are going to help them be at their best when it means the most for them. And really proud that we do that, and that lessons learned is a mantra, and so some players maybe are more focused on the frustration of the mistake than the fascination of the growth. And they need to really practice that self-talk. So on the field, I've had players, they miss a shot and and I go, hey, every time you miss a shot for the next 5 minutes, I want you to say lessons learned. And then you can tell me what you observed through that process. And it also reminds me of the mantra, right? Make adjustments, not judgments, which has really transformed my internal self-talk, recognizing when the inner critic is there. I'm being judgmental of myself, of others, pulling myself out of the moment, not in a growth-oriented way. And then I go, no. I'm here to change. I'm here to evolve. What is the adjustment I'm going to make from a more neutral perspective? Again, these are all things that neither of us learned when we were teenagers. And I mean, I'm very happy with my life. I'm very at peace with who I am. My goodness. Could you imagine if we learned this at the age that we're teaching our kids?
Right.
I mean, unbelievable.
And honestly, there were, people take for granted, but there were lessons that we were learning. We just weren't choosing to focus on those.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so even as a little kid playing, I mean, I can think back and tell you, my first grade teacher, my second grade teacher, my third grade teacher. I can think of who my t-ball coach was, my first football coach, and all those people, whether they were very mindful about the lessons they were teaching or not, were having an effect on me. So again, in high school, if I could have had the discipline to like really focus on those things, right, as opposed to just taking it for granted, and my focus was, I got to go to school. Can't wait to play sports. Can't wait to go out with the boys on the weekend and meet some, new people and things like that.
Sure.
So us being able to deliver that and plant a seed in the mind of a teenager is immense. It's huge. And it's not going to, again, it's going to take time. It's going to take a process. It's going to take, consistency. Spring of consistency, consistency tracker, all the things we're asking them.
Huge.
Winner compete to elite, right? Checking lessons learned, mistakes made, gratitude, right? Kind of going through all of it. There's no harm in slowing down and having a little reflection.
So powerful.
To then speed the what up to go dominate and be your best version.
Yeah. I've been saying it a lot during training. The fastest way to get better is to slow down. And I mean, I think about it. I'm sure you've been there on the driving range and you hit a bad shot and then you don't even pick your head up and you get another ball and you go again. And after about 10 shots, you go, okay, wait a second. Let me take a breath. Let me visualize. Have you ever done that before?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had one of my buddies make fun of me because I made a horrendous shot. It was like 130 out at a 9-iron, for you, 130 out's like your, it's like your gap wedge or something. But for me, and you're going through that routine and visualizing it, right? And I have I had my own checklist at the time, and I just flubbed this shot, right? It's just goes over, and I say out loud, I'm like, a couple cuss words, like, why do you even have a checklist? And my buddies playing golf with, they're like, did you just say, why do you have a checklist?
Yeah.
I was a little embarrassed, but more embarrassed about the shot. And and I thought about it, and I'm like, you know what? At least I'm giving myself a chance, and I'm trying something.
No doubt.
With the checklist. It's funny you say golf, and practicing your swing and visualizing it. At some of the group training recently, and with some of the kids working on shooting, I said to them, anyone play golf? And, a couple hands go up. And I'm like, well, okay, enough. You've seen enough golf. Before you address the shot, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And, the kids are like, you take a couple practice swings, right? So if kids are showing up to training, I'm like, all right, here's a ball. Just go run down and go shoot it, right? Go through this drill. Why don't we go through it with a couple of practice swings?
Yes.
Why don't we be dialed into the feet, right? Into our mindset. And so instead of immediately grabbing the ball to go and work on this, like,
good,
maybe 2-step hockey stop to roll back and try to get our left hand free to shoot. Okay. Great drill. Why don't we go through it without the ball so that we are in a better place? So
much more fun.
When we show up to a club game or a high school game and you see the kids that are literally taking, a coach is like, we're going to warm up in 10 minutes. And so they dump the balls by the restraining line and they're taking, 40 foot to 20 yard, like crank shots. I'm like, who's going to get that?
Yes.
We might get one of those
in
this game.
Yep.
How's that happening?
Yes.
So why don't we kind of work on our practice swing? Why don't we just kind of, put the headphones in and work on that footwork and just go through a couple like fake half swing, or half shot kind of
mimic
routines.
the movement. Yeah. Every Olympic athlete's doing it.
Right.
Because you are creating those neural pathways in the brain. Right. So they understand it. And you're absolutely right. Taking the time to slow down, to be really intentional about our preparation, even as simple as right before you go on the field, will make a difference. And I think about the best players I've ever coached. They were always doing what I called shadow dodging.
Yes.
They were always moving. They were always mimicking on the sideline, in between drills. Like they were never stagnant.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the same thing. You watch the most elite athletes going through it, and it's next to impossible to actually, duplicate the real live thing.
Yes.
Right. You just can't. Everyone's like, how do I get in shape for the season? Like, you're not really in your best lacrosse shape until you're probably a quarter to halfway through the season, because we've been going through it. And so we just give ourselves the chance, through those opportunities. I also think of it, in terms of these kids, like the focus is, a lot on the outcomes, as you were saying before, instead of the process, and taking a step back to that warm up and being elite in so many different areas. Yep. So your best player is going to get hopefully 7 to 8 shots a game. Okay. And your best player, your leading scorer, you hope is going to score 3, right? Out of those 7 to 8 shots. Hat trick's a great day.
Yep.
That's shooting 30 to 40%. We've said this before. That's elite. Okay.
Yes.
The kids who are, not getting 8 shots a game, the kids who are not getting, even 5 shots a game, maybe 1 or 2, right? So can you be 50%? Can you still be 30%? Take it even further, working on our feet and working on our bobbing and weaving. Let's say there's one ball. Well, there is one ball on the field.
Yeah.
So how often is it in your stick?
Yep.
Elite player has it probably maybe 10% of the game. Maybe. Right?
Maybe.
Everybody else defensively, either on ball or off ball, right? If you're on ball, probably 10% of the game, off ball, 90%.
Yeah.
So why aren't we practicing and working on those 93 to 95% of the game when we don't have the ball? Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
Right?
It's incredible. And just pulling from something that I learned from golf, sports psychology, and then how we've applied it for students. And I had an example is the pre-shot routine, keeping it as simple as say it, see it, feel it, commit to it. Right. So I want to hit the shot, say it out loud. I visualize either myself hitting it or the ball flight, give myself the best chance possible. And then I try to tap into the body and feel it and do a practice swing exactly as I want to do it. And then that's exactly what I'm going to go do. Take a breath and go. Helped me immensely. So I've helped golfers with that, but I've done that in the field the other day. I was working with a college athlete and he was really struggling with this one specific technique. And I said, hey, we're going to integrate our instructional self-talk right now.
Right.
And so we went through that routine. He starts doing it and he starts pinging the corner and he like smiles at me and I'm like, yeah, but it works. And then I said, now let's have some fun with it. Start saying it in a more inspirational, more positive way.
Right.
And performance was the same or better. But I go, how do you feel? He's like, I feel great. And I go, yeah, it really benefits you to speak to yourself in a enthusiastic, positive, motivational, instructional way. Like it's going to just elevate your mood. And I just don't know players who are cold on the field. I don't know many players who say, oh yeah, I'm at my best when I'm just really ice cold, really critical. The vast majority of the players that I've worked with, teams we've worked with, all say they're at their best when they're having fun, when they are practicing enthusiasm. Their most confident version of themselves comes through. And there's also room to be neutral.
Sure.
Right? The neutral attitude of not getting too high, not getting too low, super important. But yeah, I don't know, from working with teenage and college athletes, I'm seeing that the vast majority of them, myself included, I perform at my best when I'm having a damn good time.
110%. And everybody's different, right? To each his own. And so when you have these post-mistake routines, or when you have these post-rep routines, or when you have these routines through practice and games, everybody's different. The 3 of us in this room, we're different. Okay. Our perfection, or what we see perfection, is very subjective between the 3 of us, or anybody. And so if you don't have the mindfulness to find what it is that puts you at your best. So some guys, some players, boys and girls, get motivated by being pushed really hard by a coach that's just like, no, next rep, let's go. That's not good. They can handle that, right? They can handle that. But 100%, right? When they're having fun, when they're at their best, when their body language is amazing, right? They are doing their best. Like they are playing at an elite level because they're mindful of like, okay, they know what kind of motivates them.
Yes.
For others, it's not. And so I think as coaches, when you learn your players, you kind of understand them from the inside and out, right? Inside out coaching, you can find the best routines to put everybody in a position to succeed.
Yes.
So yeah, I just think all this is it doesn't hurt people to slow down, to hear this language of, as we call it, mental skills, and to be mindful of that.
Yes, absolutely. Let's go back to you as a teenager college athlete, and you could pick which time frame you want, what mental skill, what perspective, what strategy are you teaching most often now to the students that you're working with personally that you believe would have had the biggest impact on your growth or your ability to really enjoy the experience, your ability to develop as a leader?
That's a great question. The first thing that comes to mind is the process of it, the process of the day in and day out, attention to just next play mentality, keep working. Now, for me, as a high school or a college athlete, I took that for granted, but I was okay because of how competitive I am.
Yes.
So whether I was, running a rep in a practice, or going against somebody else, I've always been wired to be like really competitive.
Yes.
So I just kept going and going and going without realizing it. Right. I knew I was competitive and I wanted to win and I wanted to get on the field, but it's just, I wasn't thinking to that. So for other kids, they don't, working with players right now, they're so obsessed with the ball going in the back of the net exactly where they wanted it, which is great.
Yeah.
Okay. But there's a process to get there.
Yep.
So them being confident in the little things, their feet, right?
Sure.
How explosive they can be, even a little subtle thing like the process of being really good at splitting from your right to your left, but then be the exact same left to right.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Go back to those elite player gets 8 shots a game. Others get 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And so if we are not dialed into the process of those little things, right, then we can't get to those 8 shots.
Sure,
and then we can't get to the 3 or 4 that we're lucky to have, or defensively, like, being really, really mindful of how impactful my feet can be, the confidence in my hips, the confidence in my balance, the confidence in my focus. So I would say the number one thing that I wish I knew better was loving that process, loving the day in and day out, and being proud of myself for being competitive. A lot of people tell me you're way too competitive, right?
Yeah.
And in a way, as a coach early on, that was a problem. Right?
Yeah.
Because I expected things so, I wanted to look like this and I wanted us to play. Why isn't everybody that competitive as I am?
Sure.
Why do I need to be like this?
Yes.
And so it came out the wrong way. So instead it's like, okay, how do I find what gets them motivated, right?
Yeah.
What's a good balance of that? And I wish I had done it earlier, but again, I wouldn't have become the coach that I came unless I learned.
Yeah. Everything happens exactly as it should.
That makes sense.
100%. One Big Team podcast is powered by Mabry Academy. We are the leaders in comprehensive player and personal development. We are experts in preparing you today for where you want to be tomorrow. We have 2 big programs. We have our lacrosse program where we run comprehensive one-on-one long-term coaching, college roadmap program, and the best group training in the country, specifically right here in the DMV area. And then we also have our mental performance department, where we also work in a one-on-one capacity with teams, schools, and club organizations. And we have multiple virtual programs that you can access right now. Please check out MabryAcademy.com if you are looking to up your game and take it to the next level. Appreciate you. There's been conversations with coaches before, and I think they assume some of the stuff we do is just being really positive, especially when I step into the room, because I am generally a positive person. I have a positive outlook on things, and I do my best to exude positive, optimistic, confident energy so that I can help raise up people around me. And I go, and it's not as much positivity as it is productivity. Yeah. So I'm not really as concerned about making your team a positive team as I'm here to help them become a productive team. Oh, there's a lot of overlap there, but it's what you're talking about. I did things my way because I was so hyper competitive, probably didn't take the time to slow down and reflect and look at the room, read the room. And it's not that it would have been all like, ooh, we're having fun now. It's like probably would have been potentially more successful, right? And again, these are all just playing Monday morning quarterback, looking at these things. But yeah, it is really powerful. And I think for myself, high school, if I had the ability to talk and learn a specific skill, it really, for me, would have been self-talk, because I think I really had it in some aspects. I was speaking to myself at times in a positive way. But then once I began to understand that I can amplify my life experience, my performance, my ability to affect others positively through the internal dialogue that I'm having, my life changed profoundly. And that was really in college when I started having an intentional conversation, and I just keep getting better and better at it. And yeah, I look back, especially with school, I told myself I couldn't do so many things. I can't do that. I'm not good at that. Unconscious. I didn't realize that I was putting up all these walls and limits. And that's kind of one of the main themes of this game of life, is identifying these limiting beliefs and transforming them into empowering beliefs, being more open, being more curious, being more expansive, believing in yourself so that you can go do whatever it is that is most authentic to you.
The self-talk that you were describing, it all relates to confidence, our own individual confidence course. Look at it now, everybody, by the way. Come on now. But I could not agree more with that. And as you were talking, that you had this disbelief you could do certain things, call it imposter syndrome. I struggle with that even as, after winning championships.
Sure.
I'm like, how's this happening? Like, what's going on? What am I doing? And that sort of my whole life, because all of us are programmed to be part of those labels that we were. Okay, young Casey he's a good athlete, and he's going through, and he's playing lacrosse and football and basketball, and he gets to go play in college. And then, honestly, the very average, below average college player. And, it kind of creeps in and sets in a little bit of like doubt in yourself and like, oh, man, I was good then. Why am I good now? But I completely hear you. So I think that self-talk for young people, at least giving yourself the chance every morning you wake up, you know what? I don't have to do this. I get to do this. I say it all the time.
No doubt.
I got a math test today. I'm going to go freaking dominate this thing. I'm not, listen, you're just giving yourself the chance. You're just flooding yourself with the positive. And if you're very, very competitive, like, I am going to do this. Right.
Yeah.
And so going through that routine of constantly telling yourself it's going to be okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
There's no harm. I remember working with a team, it was last year, and I just literally came up with this on the spot, where it's a nice program, great coaches, great people around them. But the players, I mean, they weren't the big boys from MIAA or like the top WCAC or the top IAC schools. I mean, just these kids want to go play and compete and have fun. Right. So, but as a group, they hadn't been successful in a while. And, that self-doubt can creep in all of them individually and then collectively. Coaches love what they were doing, right? They made the right choice. They brought Mabry Academy and they come and work with the guys. But we did a quick exercise where, we had them look around the room and just said, listen, if there was a competition for just want and desire and just, a grit, and you don't even know what it is, look around the room and who do you think on this team would win that competition? And they don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
And so I had them do it. Don't tell anybody, write it down. And then we had a really fun competition. You know the one I'm talking about?
Reaction drill,
The cone reaction drill, right? So it's just rando. We had a NCAA tournament style, and just pair them up, and it's hips, knees, head, boom, boom, boom. They go all the way down to the end, right? Until one winner. And you can't predict it, right? Who's going to do it? And so they sit back down, and who got this young man, who picked that guy? And I think like one or two raised their hand, and like, well, who was like way off and had no idea? And then the question was, who wrote down themselves? Who bet on themselves?
Yeah.
Nobody raised their hand.
Yeah.
Now, since then, going through that exercise, which I love, I've seen a few. Point being is, if you don't bet on yourself, okay, if you don't at least give yourself the chance every day that you wake up, right, or every time you go to train, okay, how are you going to get this? Okay. How are you going to do it? Do you get in trouble for saying in your head, I can do this, right? I got this. Okay. No, zero.
Yeah.
Zero. And them as a team, as a whole, they're going to play the number 10 team in the country in a week. Listen, that's going to be a battle. It's going to be tough. But is there any harm in you guys as a team, at least just saying, you know what, let's just go shock the world and beat these guys?
Yeah.
Who cares? Let's go train like we're going to go beat them. Because if you don't, then honestly, then you haven't given yourself a chance.
Not at all. That exercise.
Self-talk.
Yep, absolutely. That reminds me of another perspective that we shared with players. I really enjoy this one. I'll say, hey, if I put you on the field and you got to observe your team, or maybe, for example, I've done this with an 8th grader recently who's going to go. What do you got?
No, go, bro. I love
I did this one with an 8th grader, and he's going to go attend this private school. And I said, if I put you on the field, nobody can see you. You can go in the huddle. You can walk around and observe the team. And you're out there 10, 15 minutes. And then we went in the weight room and you observe those guys, right? And you get to be right next to them. They don't have any idea. You're just observing their behavior, their body language, their focus, all these things. Do you think you could identify the hardest worker in the room? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. Great. What would you look for? How would you know? And they're like, I guess the way that they move, the intensity, the way they talk to other people, just their energy, their vibe. I go, great. Can you emulate that? Can you become the hardest worker on the field? And make that your process goal. Make that the number one thing. Because you, at the end of practice, at the end of the day, at the end of the season, will be so proud of yourself. You would have grown so much. And I've had some players adopt that as their center focus. Everywhere I go, every showcase I go to, I look around and I observe who's the hardest worker on the field. What are they doing? And then I'm going to go top that. And it's such a great perspective to have.
It's phenomenal. And to go a step further, it's like watching that happen. But who is the most authentic? There's some people, okay, imposter syndrome, who are there, hooting and hollering. We want that energy in there. But is literally authentic. This isn't just he has to be there. He understands, or she understands, that she gets to be there and is making the most of that weight room time.
Yeah.
Right. Making the most of those little moments. And to stay even further, what is their process like behind the scenes?
Yeah.
What kind of human are they with, relationships and how they treat teachers and how they treat others, and really diving into that. And when I heard you say that, I remember you saying that, and I've used it so many times and I love it. It is just such a phenomenal exercise for people to look at that and then also say to themselves, okay, how did they get there?
Yep.
And young freshman is looking and sort of trying to model that senior.
Yes.
I'm probably not going to outlift him or out like play him, but can I try to match that authentic energy?
Exactly right.
That's it.
Yeah. I love
show me who you align with, man. Show me who your group is, and we'll show you outcomes.
Yeah. I love that one. I love the other one, like, hey man, screw your goals, show me your calendar.
Yeah.
Like, if you're really serious about it, show me that. And then the other one that I've learned over the past, like 6 months ago, I think I heard it maybe for the first time, is your current outcomes. That's your commitment. So your commitment, people say, oh, I'm committed to this. And it's like, well, your outcome, what you're actually experiencing, is a reflection of what you've been committed to.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy that mirror, because I've had a lot of players say, oh, I want to do this, want to do that. And I appreciate their pursuit of these things, right? From an idea standpoint, that's where it starts, right?
Yeah.
It starts in the mind, seeing yourself achieving something. And it's like, all right, well, where are we right now? And I also like, the way I feel today is based off the way I treated my body last week. You could go back further and say last month and last year. But these perspectives are so powerful. And as adults, we're using them, and we're so excited about it, because we're like, wow, I feel more aligned. I feel happier. I'm better at being a husband, a father.
Sure.
And it just helps us tap into these things. And again, young Michael Mabry probably would have benefited immensely, young Casey O'Neill immensely, from a conversation with a trusted mentor or a coach to help us think bigger, to think in a way that is going to help us adjust our behaviors in a really positive way.
So that young Michael Mabry, when you kind of made that mindset shift, it was around college, as you were saying before, there were individuals that sort of, either, and we talked before about like hand holding, and it's like all positivity, like, oh, there's accountability.
Sure.
And I'm not saying we're going to, we want you in a great environment for you to be the best version of yourself. And if that takes a little bit of discipline, right? A little bit of focus and a little bit of, hey, get over here. That's going to happen. But there was somebody that influenced you at that point, right?
Yeah.
There was something you heard, or there was some coach that you're like a water balloon pop.
Well, yeah,
it hit you right. Yes. You hit you right there. And I know you want to jump on that, and I want to let you explain that. But an exercise I've been doing recently with a lot of the high school guys, and asking them to go to random teachers they look up to.
Yeah.
Parents, coaches, And I want you to ask them what are two things that make up a leader to you, right? What are two things? And so the reason for the exercise is, if you really want to be a captain and you want to be a leader and you want to be that guy in the weight room senior year who that other invisible eighth grader is watching, and that's you, then you've got to understand what leadership is and what it means to the people you look up to.
Yeah.
And what you're going to have is say you go interview or just quickly ask 5 different people, what are two things that make up a leader? You're going to have this crazy definition, right? And you're going to hear different things. And then it's just going to educate you and it's going to put you in a better space.
That's a great point.
And for the young kids who are nervous about even talking to their coaches.
Yeah.
Okay. Nervous about it. You imagine a coach, like, it's a lot of times we talk about recruiting films and things like this. Like, how does your film differ from others? Why are you more recruitable than another guy, right? What makes you different? But when you do this, imagine your high school coach and you walk up before practice and you give him a fist bump and you're nervous. Hey, coach, really enjoying playing right now. I can't wait to get after it today. And let's go beat, so-and-so this weekend. Real quick. What's your definition of leadership?
Yeah.
And the coach is like, what?
I know.
Tell me two things real quick. It'd blow their mind.
Yeah.
Or they get an email instead of like, oh, playing time or coach, I can't do this. I have a dentist. It's like, that's pretty cool. They will remember that.
That's exactly right. No, you're so spot on.
But back to that, because I know you were like talking about that person that just flipped your script.
Sure. Well, it's amazing how you can learn something from a coach, from a mentor, and it can apply in that moment.
Yeah.
And then it can also apply for the rest of your life. And then it can also pop up when you need it most. So I think about a very transformative time in my life was my freshman year in college, which was full of mistakes. And then really when the attitude changed, the mindset changed, things built up to it, both positive and negative, but it was at the end of the spring season and I got surgery. But I think about Coach Eddie Mason, who in 8th grade, when I was in 8th grade, I was helping a camp, working with little kids, his football camp, and he's in the huddle and he's gathering their attention. And he's like, hey, eyes on eyes. If you want to learn, you got to go eyes on eyes. Where your eyes goes, your focus goes. Where your focus goes, your attention flows. Where your attention goes, your energy goes. Your energy is the only thing you got in this life. You got to keep it where you want it to be. And I remember being like, and these kids, and he's the man. And these kids are like, they're 5th graders, 4th graders, right? Yeah. And I'm like this. I'm just locked in, man. I'm just right there with them.
What did he just say?
And that was a mantra that I carry forward to this day about eye contact, which helped me become more confident. But then I learned a lot from coaches. Think back to high school football. I never played. I was a below average football player. Our team was really good. 2 state championships, 28-0, 2 years. Incredible. So, but I always was eyes on eyes with these coaches.
Right.
And then I got into college, those lessons started coming through. All right. So I think about a couple key things that stood out to me when I made a big shift that I think could help people. So freshman year, I went in with really big expectations, lofty goals, and I didn't meet any of them. I didn't have a good routine with lifestyle, didn't manage my time well, and I got hurt. I drank too much, didn't go to class enough, and didn't have the self-talk or the regulation skills that I now do. And I just put an immense amount of stress on myself, and I didn't have the proper techniques to manage the stress. So I went in, I was like, oh, I'm going to start. And I honestly wanted to transfer out of the school. Like, I was like, this is my plan. I'll be this all-American freshman transfer out. Very unrealistic. Really could use a mentor to dial me in. So I had that plan. None of it happened. Tore my meniscus in the fall, tore my shoulder the first day of practice in the spring. So I made some choices though. I decided I was going to be this great teammate. And I was going to just shag balls at practice. I was going to help guys, whatever it took. I was going to be this excellent guy on the sideline. Right. So I took that as a main focal point for me. End of the year, we do our evals. I get surgery. I'm in my sling. I'm talking to my coaches and they go, what'd you think of this year? And I said, it's one of the worst years of my life. This was really brutal. And I'm so disappointed in myself. And I cried and I was just really upset. And my coach at the time, Todd Doward, he said, do you know what you want now? And I said, yes, I know exactly what I want. I want to come back. I want to be the best version of myself. I want to be a team captain. I want to be a starter. Like, I know exactly the type of person that I want to be because I really rattled myself. And he goes, if you know what you truly want now, you are 10 steps ahead of all the other guys who you're competing against for a starting spot because they just played their year and they're thinking things are good. but you have this hunger, this desire, now, this clarity. And I said, okay, I understand what you mean. And there was two other things that happened in this meeting that I look back on as some of the most pivotal experiences in my growth as a human. They had asked people the week before, if you have any feedback for us as coaches, write it down, bring it in. Well, I sat there and observed every practice almost as a coach. I look now like where I'm at with the academy and coaching. That year made me the coach that I am, sitting there being hurt, being frustrated, watching, observing. I brought in like 5 pages of notes. I broke down how we could like 10x the amount of reps we were getting at practice. We were doing old school stick work drills where guys are getting a rep every 20 seconds.
Right.
I was like, well, we could shave this down. We could break up into smaller groups here. I think we should do this. And they were like, this is really good. And they implemented it. And so that meant a lot to me that they were willing to do that. That showed a level of trust. It was worth it to be vulnerable. It was worth it to speak up. So because they were willing to grow, it then allowed me to grow more as a leader, which is a beautiful thing. And then we did this other exercise that day in the classroom all together. And our coach said, if we had to play in the national championship tomorrow, write down your starting 10. Who do you want to go represent us? And so I write it down. And when I get in there, he goes, remember that exercise we did? And I go, yeah. And he goes, you didn't play this year and you are on every single person starting lineup. And I was like, it was a reminder of the way that you treat people, the way that you carry yourself outside of the 48-minute, or in college, the 60-minute game is the ultimate. And yeah, those experiences changed my life big time.
I love that. They gave me chills. And again, just like the air, aviation, all these thoughts are going and all these stories are coming up and things that I think about to, a young man that was just that worker, that person, smallest guy, kind of built his way up to overlooked, under recruited, and every player in the team through that consistency and process, literally senior year going into a playoff game, get the call from an ACC school. They're going to take this kid, and the standing ovation he got because of that work, right? Because of his attention to detail after practice. I also go to every successful All-American I've ever coached, every first team All-League player, right? Every kid that made it all the way through college and kept going, 100% had to deal with adversity.
Yes.
In many different forms.
Yes.
In many different forms. Okay. And my college path was very kind of similar. I had academic issues freshman year. I torn my ACL the year before, and it was just a wasted year. I was more interested in parties and this and, gain weight and this and that. And then sophomore year, I had to take a reset, was told I'd have to probably try out again to stay on the roster. Wow. And I did it. And then by junior year, kind of that, I just had this like love and gratitude to just be still part of the team and still doing this. And my play spoke for itself. Wasn't a scorer. I was playing D-midi. I learned face off and get on field, right? We won a Patriot League championship. Senior year, again, just kind of that same role, just so happy to do it. But think of the most elite, successful people that our society looks up to. Yep. Okay. In sport, think of Tom Brady, right? Yep. Tom Brady, gangly guy. He was 6th on the depth chart at Michigan. He's drafted in the 6th, 7th round. And he, you see podcasts with him and talking about it, like, you're tired, you wake up, get your ass up and go work, right? Yeah. Think of Michael Jordan, the most famous basketball player of all time, right? He was winning scoring titles. He was the guy. But if you ever watch, I forget the documentary on the Bulls. What was it?
Last Dance.
The Last Dance. It wasn't until, he started to trust others and he went through some tough times, and him getting knocked down by the Pistons and him getting pushed down and beat up, when he made that commitment to do things and going through that adversity, right? Does he go through it? Think of Kobe, right?
Yes.
Think of any great golfer, right? Yeah. Any great golfer and going through that sport. I mean, it's just the list goes on and on and on. And to be successful, you have to accept adversity.
Yep.
Okay. Doesn't mean it's awesome.
Yep.
But it's just the way it goes. And like you said, those, your vision, right? If that's your vision and this is your process and this is what you want to do, then you get that life chilling moment that you just told us about, every kid on the roster being like, put Mabry in, put Mabry. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it reminds me, one of the things, I've had this conversation many times with players, is like our internal drive needs to be bigger, stronger, louder than external circumstances. So let's call the external circumstances adversity. Well, if your internal self-talk is stronger, better, faster than the outside world, you'll be able to transform that experience at a more rapid rate.
Right.
And yeah, that visual, I think, is a really important one for players to understand, you know, and that goes what you're saying about the authenticity and just making sure that you are working on yourself as a person. And yeah, just making sure internally we have a framework, we have the language of mental skills. We're choosing to create confidence every day. We're choosing to engage in our process every day in a way that when adversity strikes, we're ready for it. We anticipate it, we accept it, and then we use it to fuel us. And one of the questions that we've asked teams is, how much stress in your life is self-induced out of 100%? And it's like, hey, things happen in life, things we can't control that are going to be stressors, but how much of the stress that you accumulate is self-induced? And the answers that we usually get are between 60 and 90% every time. And most of those kids are towards 75 or more. It's so true, right? The way that we respond to adversity and stress is going to dictate how much more stress we experience or how much quicker and more fluidly we get to growth and joy and back to the present moment.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing to learn.
Amazing. And put it into a game situation, you know, when things get the most tense in the fourth quarter, if we've been going through these, lessons learned through our adversity in practice and in the weight room and in life and going through it, you know, it's the fourth quarter in a big championship game. It's like, hello, old friend, you know, now, like you just kind of focus. That's why those most elite performers, have been through so much. Yeah. So Tom Brady can throw that touchdown in overtime in the Super Bowl. And Michael Jordan is like, I'm either comfortable enough to take that shot or to dish it to somebody else. I think a great exercise too with kids, especially in training and playing, is them having the reflection or at least the conversation or what are the things you do best on the field?
Yeah. Strengths.
What are your strengths? And it doesn't have to be something that, is the fastest shot or I'm the biggest, strongest guy. It could be, I see the field well, or I see the court well, or I do this really, really well. And say, okay, well, let's make that elite. Let's make you the best in that situation. And then it's, of course, weaknesses, and not weaknesses like I stink or I suck, but weaknesses that you need in your sport that we're just going to pay attention to, right? And chip away at.
Yep.
So all good.
Yeah.
All good.
There is something I do want to talk about because I believe it's so important that people in the position that we are in have these discussions. And it goes back to that time frame in my life after I got surgery. So I got surgery freshman year, March 27th, 2012. And I said to myself, okay, once I get surgery, I'm eating super clean, no drinking. And until I am back, like I am beyond where I ever was. So a couple weeks out of surgery, starting to feel better, getting a little more clear headed. And then like 3 weeks out of surgery, I'm like, man, I feel really good. This is interesting. A month after surgery, I go, man, my mental clarity, my energy, my emotional regulation, I'm in a really good place. What is this? And I go, oh, well, maybe it's because I'm not drinking. And I grew up like most people in this area drinking almost every weekend in high school. And I look back and I went, I did that without any intention. I never had a conversation with any coach or mentor about, hey, what's your alcohol use like? And thankfully, nothing bad ever happened, but I didn't do myself any favors by just not looking at what was happening. So I went all freshman year drinking. So I get this space from it and I go, wow, I feel incredible. My decisions start to change, more mindful of what I'm putting in my body, both from back then it was Twitter was really big to the food I'm eating and the books I'm reading, the people I'm spending time with. And I remember reading at a time a quote and it said, most humans never give themselves the chance to know how good they can feel. And that is the truth. Most people really don't know how good you can feel when you take care of yourself at the highest level with the food you put in, the books you read, the people you spend time with. I'm working on it. I want to feel better tomorrow than I do today, right? So it's not saying that I have that answer, but I do know that that was an important realization for me. And then it shifted my relationship with alcohol. And what I'm really proud of is that I have no hesitation to talk with a high school student athlete about their alcohol consumption. And we have these incredible conversations. And what I'm finding, almost all of them say to me is, yeah, I do it more than I'd like. Cool. Why do you feel that way? It's just what everyone else is doing. I don't know what else to do with the downtime. It's a social thing, the peer pressure. But I've never met a kid, and maybe they don't want to admit it, who's like, yeah, I'd like to crack some more beers every weekend. Every single one of them goes, yeah, it's not really helping me.
Right.
And I feel a little bit more stressed and anxious. My body doesn't feel good. And I'm not enjoying the person I am when I drink. I go, all right, well, let's talk about lifestyle. Let's talk about how you can manage this.
Yeah.
It's just something super important. Now I find myself, where
it is a product of the society and the curiosity. And my father used to always say to me, like, moderation is the key in everything. So I'm not telling parents or people how to parent their kids and what's right and what's wrong. We got a effed up society as it begins with. We need more leaders and more people.
Yes.
But I think the idea of understanding what moderation and balance really is.
Yeah.
Okay. And so as we kind of go through, everyone's partying every weekend, fear of missing out. I got to go do this. And man, me in high school and college, same thing.
And also doing it to most likely suppress stress that we're avoiding, right? Like we don't realize that we're actually doing it because we're avoiding some other things.
And as an adult, as a parent, and the stress of bills and life and kids and tuitions and just moving on, right? It's a lifetime of just managing and battling with that, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, whether it's like, taking medication and things like that. So back to the kids, I always remember my father saying that. And I always believe, like, going back to the leadership, my definition of the leadership quote is two things, right? It's an individual who can make others better.
Yep.
But more importantly, it's an individual who is balanced.
Yeah.
Right? Is balanced.
Regulated.
Is not robotically programmed. And so when you talk about alcohol and the kids understanding that, right, the things they can do, you said most humans don't give themselves the opportunity to realize how good they're supposed to feel. Yeah. Okay. Performance enhancer versus performance destroyer.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Problem finder versus problem solver.
Yep.
And with the kids going through that and learning those lessons, okay, it's going to give them an opportunity to, be the best versions of themselves.
Yeah.
Because we're all going through it, and it's okay to talk about it, and it's okay to.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to.
Just
because we just have some cycles around consumption with two things: celebrating and also suppressing. So when we're happy, our society drinks, and we're sad, we drink, and it's not working. We do have a mental health crisis. We are a more obese nation than we should be. So it's not even something like, oh, we should talk about. We have to talk about this and get that conversation at the forefront and normalize it, because it's normal to say, oh yeah, the kids, they drink. Well, like, we got to show them another way. You don't have to. All these kids I talk to, they don't want to nearly as much as they are. They're just following in line. And I'm growing more and more passionate about helping people in that space.
I appreciate you bringing that up and opening that platform to that. And I think, to hear you say that's what the kids are doing, like, that's what everybody's doing.
Yes.
That's what going through it. Okay. Well, everybody's doing that. How's that working out for a lot of guys, or in the long run? Not good. Everybody has the same, this is not related, the same highlight film with the Avicii song or Taking Care of Business and the same Instagram story.
Sure.
That's what everyone's doing.
Yes.
Everyone's label, Gonzaga 19 and this college, like, that's my label. Like, everyone's doing it. Why can't we all be creative and different?
Yes.
What separates me from the rest? Okay.
Sure.
So if I'm being recruited or something, right? Everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
Well, if everybody's doing it, then it would be so easy to, get recruited by Michigan or Carolina. No, you've got to be unique in your own skill sets, right? The balance that you have, trying new things, and being diverse.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And understanding what that looks like.
Yep. No doubt.
Taking a risk, baby. Educated risk.
Educated risk for sure. And I believe the vast majority of our time spent with the academy is pushing forward this more positive culture in youth sports and beyond. And I'm super proud of what we do.
Let's go.
The conversations that we have daily, the people that we're becoming, the services that we provide. It is the coolest thing in the world.
I
love it. Wouldn't change a thing.
It is.
I got a good question for you. So it is, and I know the answer. If you had all the money in the world, what would you change? And would you change anything? And my answer for me is simple. of course, I would take care of my family and I would pay the bills, all that, no doubt, right?
Yeah.
I would just invest it in the academy. I would go to group training. I would go coach kids, like maybe a little bit differently, but at the core of how we spend our days, I would do the same thing. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first one is I would rewind and go back and not, as I'm reflecting on how I answer these questions. I think I'm doing a good job, but I've said too many times. I'm going to work on that. I'm going to work on the
Power of the pause.
Thank you. Power of the pause. But I feel good. I feel confident and comfortable. I have to say it. I would just literally first thing develop just the coolest, most badass house on a lake and
Sure,
whatever.
Sure,
anyway.
all that good stuff.
And so saying all those good things. I think I would invest it in a way to teach people and teach kids. I would not change the academy. I would not do all that. The power of like being able to affect more people in this setting.
Yes, no doubt.
Because I can't buy a time machine and go back and make better decisions, right? I just can't. I can't go back and maybe things I said to a player, to my wife, or an action I made and change that. I can't do that. But I would find a way to invest that like globally. Yeah. Everybody had an opportunity to learn this.
We're going to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no doubt.
That means we're getting 40 million.
We're somehow we'll attract good things and we'll put out more good things in the world. I got no doubt about it.
Might get new golf clubs too. And actually, no, I
work on the swing first. This conversation has been awesome. Love spending time with you. Love getting your perspective. Always learn from you. You are an expert in the high school experience, helping people navigate the high school experience, especially in regards for preparation for college. Can we spend a few minutes you sharing your perspective on those key things that you think people should understand about getting the most out of the high school experience, preparing for the college experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm an expert. I don't think anybody is an expert in that, because the point being is a lot of your future in continuing to play a sport is based on that individual, right? Sure. So how hard they're working, right? Sure. So to be an expert, okay, I want them to be experts in their own progression and their process and their day to day and taking care of controllables. And certainly we don't have time to talk about what those controllables are. CSF Academy can help you with that. So when I think about it, there's an expectation or there's just an assumption for a lot of people that, okay, if I put them in the right place or I put her in this club or I put them there, that it's just going to happen. Sure. And I mean, just like in anything, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of luck to it. And there's a lot of not luck, but just, who sees you and views you. But I'm going to take it in a window. And I came up with a phrase where it's called 40 to 5 and 8. Mm. All right. 40 is you take just a random pool of players who are freshmen in high school. The 8 at the end is your 4 years of high school and 4 years of college. So that's 8 years. The 5, and this is where everyone's like, whoa, the 5 is at the end. So we go from 40 to 5 and 8. Not always that exact science or that exact formula. Pretty close. But point being is if you take an average of 40 players or you're on a field and you're watching a club game like I was yesterday with some college, ACC guys and Big Ten guys and talking about the players on the field, chances are that in 4 years with those freshmen, okay, probably not all 40 are going to be giving mom and dad the flower on senior day. Yes. It's probably going to be half of that. Okay. So if you're at one high school, that's like a big program, you're going to have 30 guys. And then maybe in 4 years, you're going to have 15 that are seniors. And out of those 15 to 20, realistically, D1, D2, D3, club, wherever, signing day, you're going to look at about 10 of those, right? 10 of those that are going to this program and this program and that program. Well, then we got another 4 years left and those kids go in. Some of them, like Coach Mabry and Coach O'Neill, might come in freshman year, get injured, have things go on, right? They might not have the mindset to stick through it and keep going. Others get completely burnt out. Completely burnt out. In our situation with my son, went to D1, program shut down at Furman. Program literally folded and shut down. Now he continued and went to play club and had an amazing experience. But again, you're starting to see where I'm going with this. Injury. Coach is a jerk. I don't like it here. This is terrible. I'm done. So the numbers, and this is 25 years of like studying this and going through it, is 40 to 5 and 8. And the reason I'm not trying to scare people, I'm just trying for people to be really, really important about what the end game is. Okay.
Prioritization of the right
Prioritize. The end game is how you have the process, right? How that kid goes through each particular season, lessons learned, how much better can they get? What's the right fit for me? Academically, play wise, and socially too. What can we afford and what can we go through? So the fact that, again, watching a model of summer lacrosse is not the model of college lacrosse. So when you're playing, right? High school kind of close. When you're playing these, sort of, the time is a mystery. Okay. The fields are usually smaller, or they're somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. The officiating is subpar. Okay. The clearing and riding game, don't even get me started on that.
3 games in a day, 95 degrees.
5, 6 on that weekend. How many, talking to an ACC coach yesterday, they play 15 games in the spring. They play one on a Saturday. And then maybe a school from North will come down on a Wednesday night, but then they play again the following Saturday. So there's 6 days in between. What are they doing on those 6 days? Train, process, train, lift, work. You were lucky to be on a college roster. Okay. In your first 2 years in those 15 games, hopefully you get in or not. So is a player comfortable in training 300 days a year? And then with maybe the chance that you're getting in those 15 college games in the spring. Does that make sense to you?
Absolute sense. The biggest thing for me there is that brings complete clarity to what is the most important thing. And the most important thing is your growth, your experience. And one of my coach, Mikey Thompson, CNU, when I had him on the podcast years ago, he said, listen, there's only one team at the end of the year holding a trophy. So if our success is defined by winning a national championship, and in some circumstances it is, because that's their goal, right? That's their pursuit, and that's what's keeping them moving forward. But we're gonna have a lot of unhappy people. The goal is to develop great people, and that, to me, when you share that, it's like, hey, let's get back to the basics here. Live in the moment, grow as a person, surround yourself with great people, have fun, be of service to others, develop as a leader. This is the priority. And also, guess what? You do those 5 things really well, you might be the guy of the 5 who ends up senior day, senior year, a team captain. You actually are following the exact path to get there.
You got an opportunity, right? And gosh, you even go to that next level, and you're Connor Schellenberger, and you are getting 8 shots a game. By the way, you watch him train and watch him work. Most elite. It's the process. It's the training. It's the training. Very small percentage, but every coach, every successful college coach needs this in their players. These 2 things. They are loving to compete. Always competing. And they love to train. Because that's, if those guys are going to start freshman year, so they get to play 15 games in the spring. Those same guys have to train and lift and work. And film and study and show up 300 days a year. So if you're not down with that, that's why there's that disclaimer. Listen, let's do this. Let's find the right path. Let's cast a wide net and look at all these schools, who's who and what's what, and where are these programs and who are the coaches, where the roster come from? Do I know people? Again, if you're not comfortable with your own process and training,
running your own race
and being confident in that, then it's probably not going to work. But then again, we want to strive for it, because if you can show that you can do that, then you can go and show up in the workforce, right? And you can be a successful employee or build your own business because you've dealt with adversity and you know how to train, you know how to work. You know what I mean?
And you develop into closer to the best version of yourself. It's an incredible experience to engage in and to pursue. My thoughts here before I want to go to your next point is, one of the things we're having a lot of success with is encouraging our players to show college coaches, our kids on the recruiting cycle right now, show them how much you love the game. Show them how much fun you have playing the game. That's your number one goal. Because those coaches, you said they love guys who compete and they love guys who want to train, but they really love guys who have fun. Right? Like every coach, a couple robots here and there to score some goals.
That's they don't want the guys that have too much fun outside of
exactly.
No,
you know what I mean.
No,
you do. But that's also redefining what fun is. Because I grew up thinking that fun was misbehavior.
Sure.
And
Balance, baby.
that's not true fun.
Balance.
You know,
Balance.
Fun is really being in the present moment, doing things that are serving you and of service to others in a joyful way, and appreciating the moment in a deep way. So you have another perspective, kind of just like four main points.
Four main points to me, that because we're so, people get so anxious and nervous and they don't know what to do. And, you know, a lot of us don't, right?
Yeah.
We just, there's just no like handbook that's like, okay, follow these steps and you're done. Right? You're done. It's great. Okay. You can tell everybody. So I believe that 4 things that every player should literally be obsessed with going through this process is, number 1 is the wow. I call it the wow factor. Every 3 months, you kind of take a look in the mirror and you say the word wow. And then even your peers and others are like, wow, Mabes got after it the last 3 months. Looks amazing. Doing awesome. Guess what? You're not done. Reset. Keep going. Another 3 months. Wow factor. Wow factor. That is your focus. What are my routines? What are my habits? Okay. How much? No player should come into the starting of a summer and say, okay, I got to get recruited. No, your goal needs to be, I need to be a better player at the start of next school year than I am right now on June 1st. Okay. So that's number 1 is the wow factor. And then you got to rinse, you got to repeat, you got to wash, rinse, and you got to keep doing it. Because again, Connor Schellenberger, it could be, I mean, just give me Tom Schreiber, right? Yeah. Can he just stop progressing as a player? No. Yeah. He wants to stay as one of the most elite players. He's still working. He's still going through it. So wow factor. 2 is understanding who you are, right? Your labels could be, I'm an attackman and I go to this high school and I play for this club. But really, if I'm gonna be recruited and if I'm gonna develop a relationship with a coach, or he's going to trust me or she's going to trust me, then what separates me from others is knowing who I am, right? Where I come from, what are my values? Who I am as a person, the things I want to study, right? My motivation. You talked about it before, right? What are my goals? This is what I want. Your coach told you, you're already a step ahead of the game. Okay. So it's understanding who you are, volunteer work, all these different things. What separates you from others? The third to me is something where, you know, when I think about this recruiting and we are so inclined as a society to look over our shoulders and compare ourselves to others. Yes. And you can't do that. That's a rabbit hole and a very evil, toxic, sort of anxious place you're going to be in. Yeah. Right. I'm better than him. Our club team beat them last year. Yeah. How's he going there? Total distraction. Right? Total distraction. Okay. You can ask questions, right? About you study. You can emulate. Study it, right? But maybe they don't want to study because they think they're better than us, right? It's a fingerprint. It's a thumbprint. This is your own journey. Okay. So you cannot be focused on what others are doing. Yep. And last but not least is, dude, get one shot at the 8 years, right? Get one shot. Maybe with the COVID now, which is going away, which is 9 or 10, but it goes like that. And if you don't enjoy it, right? If you don't play the game with love, this is the game you love. You're playing. You love it. Okay. Yeah. And if you don't think about, okay, you know what? I get to go and see these campuses or understand what this school is and meet new people and play this game that I love. We're done, man. Yeah. Stress. Yeah. Stress. Yeah. So those are the 4 things. And, you know, who am I? I'm just somebody that's just, I'm learning it through lessons. Yeah, absolutely. I think wow factor. I love how the wow factor will show up in front of a coach when you wow yourself. Yeah. I think we've wowed ourselves. And I know that we could very easily, we can do this better. We will do that better. But I look back on that podcast almost 3 years ago, and the wow factor is present right now, and more of that to come, and that motivates me to continue. Comparison is the thief of joy. We're going to eliminate that. We do a really good job keeping our blinders on, our academy, our students, our services, and loving it. And I know that I love to have this conversation with you, love you as a person, love what we get to do. And I believe us embodying those qualities will be of great service to others and more good things to come. Amen. One big team. Come on now. Boom. Let's go. Good job. Appreciate you, brother.